I'm Richard Porter.
I'm Jonny Smith.
And this is On the Other Side of Things, the Smith & Sniff spin-off in which we answer your questions.
Otosot. Otosot.
Yes, here we are again, answering questions on a Friday for about 30 minutes or so. Let's start with an email from a listener called Shannon Wandmaker.
What a name.
Who says, what a name. Chaps, apologies for interrupting your variety show with a car question, but I have a dilemma that only a couple of SSGs can help with. I currently drive a 2014 Nissan Pathfinder and I'm looking to make a change.
Okay.
The problem is, the features list on every new car is just a list of things I don't want. Start, stop, lane departure, automatic wipers, head-up display, intelligent keys, remote start, automatic braking, driver alert, voice recognition, heptastic buttons. The list of no thank yous goes on and on.
I can relate.
I don't even particularly like push-button start. The handy thing about putting a key in the ignition is you know where your keys are. Definitely in the steering column and not in your wife's handbag 150 miles away.
Oh my gosh, so true. So true. He speaks our language, Richard. He speaks our language.
Yes, yes and no, but we'll come to this in a minute. He goes on to say, I still need a Pathfinder-sized vehicle for hauling small children and bikes and scooters and skateboards and other child-associated accoutrements. But I'm wondering whether instead of spending the money on a new Pathfinder/Patrol/Land Cruiser, I should instead do a restomod on something interesting like a Toyota Space Cruiser, a Volvo 850 Estate, brackets probably not big enough, or a 1990s Chevy Suburban. I would restomod the Pathfinder, except it's front-wheel drive for some reason, and it has a CVT.
It's front-wheel drive?
If it was all-wheel drive... I know, that's weird, isn't it?
Wow, okay.
If it was all-wheel drive with a ZF box, it might be worth doing. And by worth doing, I mean indulgent money pit. So his question is it worth fighting the tide? Can something interesting and practical be created for reasonable new car money? What would be the best old-school SUV people mover to restomod? Or should I just give in and accept that my next car is going to be an XC90? CMTMB, Shannon.
Well, it's a really valid question, and it's one that my parents have been asking me for about the last 5 years. Because my dad feels trapped in this conundrum of, like, he still wants a car that has a physical handbrake, lever handbrake, and a key that goes in a hole. But he likes heated seats, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to say there's probably three ways of doing this. The first thing is, if you really like the Pathfinder, I would always consider finding the same type of car again, but in more of a virginal condition. So deceased spec almost. So you go, I like those cars. They've done well for me. I understand them. But if I could find a really minty one and probably pay more than most people would because I know it'll last longer, let's say, that's money well spent. And I don't feel out of my comfort zone. Then I guess you could... The restomod question is one I've thought about with the Element quite recently, actually, because I love the shape of the Element and the packaging, but the engine is probably the least interesting and practical part about it in some ways. Do I spend some quid on it? Or do I leave it as is and just enjoy it for how Honda created it? Ooh. I think... Yeah, I think if you were going to restomod something, you'd have to build from the drivetrain out. So if you wanted something that was, say, more efficient or more powerful, you'd want to make sure there was a derivative of engine that went in that car or could be put in that car that would work for you and could work hard. It sounds like your car works hard.
Now, if I was going to do some kind of keep it simple, light restomod type thing, I think that the Land Cruiser would be the most obvious one, but that comes with the expense of the fact that people want old Land Cruisers. But I think it means that, if you then wanted to sell it, someone would have it off you.
Yeah.
A sort of gently restored and slightly updated Land Cruiser would be a wonderful thing, if that's what you want.
Yeah.
However, my feeling is, I get what Shannon's saying about some of these things that he doesn't want. I don't think all of them are terrible. If you have genuine keyless, where it's just in your pocket and then you get in, the car opens for you and then it starts. I think I take your point about, sometimes it might accidentally be in your wife's bag and she's no longer with the car, but the car will tell you that. They are pretty good now at knowing when the key's not in there. It's not like in the old days where you could drive off and then realise. They figure out that the key is no longer in the vehicle and they'll bing and warn you, and it's a useful bing and warning. And then you get used to this stuff and it becomes actually, for the most part, I think, quite handy. Lane departure warning is absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
In my experience, I've never driven a car where it is anything but distracting, and sometimes I think borderline dangerous, because it makes the car do unpredictable things. And if you're a half decent driver, it's actually a hindrance, not a help.
Yes.
But a lot of this other stuff is in fact quite useful, and I think you'd get used to it. So in a strange way, I'm probably suggesting you should just go and buy an XC90 or something like that. What I would do though is, if you are giving into this and you're going, screw it, I'll get a modern car, go and try an XC90 and some other stuff, and just find the car that is the least annoying.
Yeah.
So the one that has a nice big simple button that immediately disables the lane departure every time you need to do that. If it's brand new, it will now have this sort of speed warning bing as well.
Oh, that's so bad.
Which is so unreliable in as much as it sometimes misidentifies the correct speed limit. So then it's binging when you're being perfectly within the limits that actually apply to the road. So again, a thing that allows you to silence that when it's in the wrong is good. And sometimes that's multi-menu down, and sometimes it's really simple. And that sort of stuff, spend some time figuring out how you can turn off the things that will annoy you, but accept that things like full keyless and integration of your phone into the stereo system and all of this stuff actually can make your life more comfortable and better.
That's very. Actually, I should just finish by saying I was trying to think of a brand new vehicle that would turn you on and tick the boxes. You've got to try the brand new old school Toyota Land Cruiser, like the one I featured in the Late Break Show.
I was about to say the same thing. Yes.
This the 80 series Troopy, the station wagon, or troop carrier as they call them, Troopies, because that is quite an expensive car, brand new, but the residuals are probably one of the best residuals of any car you can think of, bar exotic limited edition classic stuff.
Yeah.
So go and see Travis at Rowlands and Horden Automotive and go and try one, because that car will carry at least as much as what your Pathfinder has done. It will tow more, and you can still buy it in a V8 diesel manual configuration. And I actually think it drives a lot better than I was expecting. So it's got character.
Okay, good advice.
Right, yeah. All right, well, I think we've actually answered a proper question. Shit, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you want a slightly... Well, is there one that could go in almost any direction?
Should we...
From Paul Hesketh. It's a question for you.
Okay.
Which Paul says he wished he'd got in for the recent podcast when you were on your own. Paul used to go to the Max Power weekend at Santa Pod every year when the mag was at the height of its popularity.
I remember.
He says, we once watched a guy in his liveried-up Bedford Rascal work van do circles on full right-hand lock until it fell over.
Oh!
Everyone gathered round and picked it back up. And he continued to do this until the van was absolutely destroyed.
Really?
What the hell? Yeah.
And it was his work van?
Fully liveried up work van.
Oh, my gosh.
We also witnessed a guy driving a Hyundai through the camping field and through the tents. Thankfully, nobody was injured. It was nuts. We used to hire a car or two from Europe Car for the weekend and then take them up the strip. My question to Jonny is, what was the craziest thing you ever witnessed at the show?
Oh, There was some. So I remember there was somebody who was doing donuts in a car park at a cruise event that was an organised cruise, I think, and it was a Hilux or something like that, or a Ranger, and there were people in the back of the pickup bed.
Oh,
and it was slightly damp, so he was just doing fairly slow but widening donuts. And he clipped a curb.
Oh God!
And the whole thing just tipped over and just ejected like 4 people.
Jesus!
Now it seems that nobody got badly hurt. I don't know. It's one of those miracle situations where you think, I don't understand how nobody got hurt. That was strange, and very lucky. So I saw that, but I used to see a lot of people, and you see it on social media now, where cars would come into a car park or like a show scenario, and they'd sort of gun it and then have to jam the brakes on because there's another car that's stopped in front for people to take pictures or do a static burnout or whatever. And I used to see lots of, normally people who were friends with one another actually driving into one another by accident.
Oh God!
Which was really bad because, it's gonna sour the moment. The thing that you spent all your money on, your car, and you're with your mates who presumably you like a lot. Suddenly, this is a very, very difficult situation, isn't it? It's heated and it's expensive. And are you going to involve insurance? Are you going to punch your friend? I don't know. There is a bit of that going on. So I've heard a lot of splintering body kits as a result.
Oh God! Why was this happening? So bizarre.
I just
go. I'm just gonna ruin my actual car.
I think the worst thing used to involve nudity. There was some nudity that was genuinely funny, and then there was some which was just a bit too weird. And there's a moment where it was uncomfortably weird for me. So
male nudity.
It was a guy and his girlfriend, and I think I'm not going to tell you the story because I don't feel comfortable doing it. But I think they were of the swinging variety and very open to sharing.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I had my professional journalist hat on, and I wasn't expecting that to occur. I'm going to stop now. We're going to stop talking.
Okay, yeah.
I've got a question that doesn't involve any of the above from David Marden, who's a regular. Hi, David. Johnny, when you're filming barn finds, do you keep a spare matching shirt with you in case of an inverted commas accident? I didn't know what he meant at first, but I could see you snagging your shirt on some random thing as you dig out an elderly Vauxhall and have to spend the rest of the shoot hiding a massive tear in your shirt. Maybe you're not that precious about it. I probably wouldn't be. I'd acknowledge the tear and move on. That's a good question. Well, I've got probably 4 late break show black T-shirts that I wear, and a car pervert one or 2. So I wear black because of oil and grease and all that jazz, obviously. I have damaged T-shirts. I'd probably just carry on if I did it. I've torn my trousers before when I was either trying to get under a car or get up from being under a car, and it was a crotch tear, and I did have to. But then I've torn my trousers when we've done a Smith and Stiff live, haven't I? Like 10 minutes before going on stage, or
didn't you tear your trousers when reviewing a new car?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I did.
Was it the Dacia Spring that you tore your trousers getting into it?
Oh, yes, I did.
What is going on? You need to buy some stronger trousers, man.
Do you know, it's funny you should say that because I've written on a post-it the other night, must buy new trousers, and I'm going to do some trouser shopping. I'm definitely going to do some trouser shopping.
Oh man.
So I have. Yeah, I need to buy some decent barn find trousers. Worky type trousers which are heavier duty and have got pads in the knees and extra pockets, like the sort of trousers that a no-name full suspension mountain bike guy would ride for putting pouches of tobacco and cans and lighters in.
Very
and
useful
stuff.
for that.
Yeah.
Hang on, but you have a pair of those, don't you? Because you were wearing them when you came round to my house last time.
Oh, the stolen Scania factory trousers. Was it those?
What?
Yeah.
You didn't tell me that.
Yeah, so I've got 2 barn find trousers. One's a pair of regular jeans, And one's a pair of grey work trousers that I stole from the Scania factory in Sweden when I was filming a documentary there for Discovery Channel years ago. And they were good.
Jonny, before you come into the factory, you have to wear these trousers.
Yeah.
And you went, oh, great, thanks so much. And then when you left, but hang on, where were your trousers then? Did you leave them behind?
No, I put them in a bag, in a rucksack. They made me wear a Scania polo shirt, which I subsequently gave to my brother. They made me I basically walked out of the factory to the hotel, and we were catching a flight early the next morning. And I realised I'd done that thing of just going, sugar, I've still got all the gear on. And to the point, Rich, where they even gave me a Scania belt. I have a Scania belt on the Scania trousers. So if you watch the Late Break Show Barn Finds and you see the grey trousers, when I'm bent over, you'll see it says Scania across the belt. It's quite big. So Scania, if anyone from Scania is watching this, I didn't actually actively steal it. I just kind of realised it had happened and then went, So
but you'd put the clothes you'd taken off in a bag, so you didn't just leave.
I didn't just leave my other clothes.
Your own
behind.
clothes in the Scania factory.
No, I didn't do a swapsy. No. So, but they're really good trousers. So they'll soldier on for a while. They look a bit 90s because I think they're oversized, but it's okay.
No, because when you came round to mine and you were wearing those trousers, I couldn't tell if they were your work trousers because you were off to do some filming that might involve grubbing around on the floor, or if you were just wearing some quite fashionable trousers.
I was wearing Bristol trousers because I knew that when I came to your house, you're quite close to Bristol, so it's like a jurisdiction thing.
Wear some baggy combats just in case. But Bristol's still enjoying the baggy combat from first time around. They haven't realised that it's gone out of fashion and then come back again.
Oh, hell.
Maybe this is it. Bristol just sits there waiting for things to come back to it.
Completely. Then its head just comes out of the water like a Loch Ness fashion monster. Yeah.
I have a serious question from listener Neil Denman, who says, should we be looking at mileage differently for EVs? For example, would you have more or less caution buying a high mileage EV car relative to a high mileage internal combustion car, and why?
That's a really good question. My friend Jonathan Porterfield at Eco Cars and a couple of other EV specialists, R. Simmons. So first thing you can do is the car will normally have inside its infotainment a sort of analytics of its state of health, its battery health. So you can request, if you're buying the car remotely, you can request to see that screen, or you can pay someone to go out and inspect the car, of course. So I would have no problem buying a higher mileage EV because I think it means that the battery's been exercised and obviously the motor's been used, and that's not a problem. Consumables like brakes and things, you can see easily the level of wear, and you can look and see if they've ever had any of that, but they're not normally that expensive. The things I would check out are condition of the bodywork, like any car, so has it had any damage, but also I found cars like the electric MGs and the electric Kia Hyundais, is how's the interior and how's the trim worn, because usually heavy foot traffic and arse traffic can take its toll on door panels and dash pieces. And that's okay if you can replace some of the bits easily, but it might show the car to be more tired than you'd like it to be.
But these are sort of things that could apply to an internal combustion car as well, couldn't they? So it's sort of, apart from the fact that I think there's a period when electric and hybrid cars sometimes seemed more likely to have white interior parts to make them seem futuristic.
Yeah.
And they suffer terribly, or can do, can't they?
Terrible.
They get
terrible.
Manky, and white upholstery gets mucky. But But no, I think, because in many ways, I know sort of battery health is a concern, but I think it's sometimes overstated. In fact, Tesla at the moment are loaning out on their press fleet that mega mileage Model S, aren't they? Have you seen this? They're encouraging people, the journalists certainly, to borrow it and see how decent it still is, even with, I can't remember how many 100,000 miles it's got on. It was a service car, so it used to go up and down the country with techs in it fixing other people's Teslas. And it's apparently, I think is it 9 years old, and it's done a few 100,000 miles, and its battery health is still sort of, it's degraded, I think something, it's like 12% or even that. They claimed something. It's pretty decent, and obviously that car's got quite a big battery. You know, if you knocked 12% off the battery in an original Nissan Leaf, that's not leaving an awful lot of range. It might still be plenty if you only ever potter around locally and have a driveway on which to charge up. Yeah. And then you could have a perfectly decent car with lots of life left in it, because the rest of it is fine. Because generally EVs are gentler on brakes, despite being heavier. Because if you've got regen...
Yeah.
I know, when I drive my 24 Tesla, I find it, I feel like I've failed if I have to use the brake pedal.
Yeah, there is that.
The regen is good, and I really enjoy judging it perfectly to come to a stop at some lights or something like that, just purely using the regen braking.
Yeah.
And so your brakes aren't being used as much as they would be in an internal combustion car. There are just fewer parts that are going to wear out. You don't need to be changing belts and oil filters and things like that in EV. So I don't think a high mileage EV is necessarily a cause for concern any more than an internal combustion car. In some ways it's better.
I think it's an easier buy in so much as what to look for. It's an easier buy.
Yeah. Because you go, oh shit, have they changed the oil when they should have done? Does it need a cam belt change? All this stuff is removed from the equation. So it is just, has the battery been knackered? Which I guess the higher the mileage, the more it's been fast charged, might have had some effect on the battery. Yeah, possibly. But also you could always go to your dealer and you could get a quote for a basic check/service where they'll pretty much, plug it into a computer. The computer tells you the life of the vehicle, what it's kind of done. And they will probably tell you the intervals for things like if it's got water-cooled, fluid-cooled battery packs. How often do you change the coolant fluid? I don't think it's very often at all. But if you're buying like a 100,000-mile car, it's probably one of those big interval jobbers. But it's like that with a piston car. I would always check out how much it costs to have those things done, and peace of mind. I tend to buy a car and have it serviced, because then you've done your bit straight away, and you can kind of tick that box of worry and go, I know it said it had only been serviced 5,000 miles ago, but what the hell? But in general, I would say same sort of rules apply. Condition, not mileage. Yeah, and all of that sort of stuff. Completely. I've seen low mileage cars that have been really ragged. Now, so actually, speaking of leggy but mechanically sound vehicles, as described by this listener, Luke Huckle has written in, hello, you raging SSGs. He says, I love slightly... Right, new one. I love slightly leggy but mechanically sound vehicles, of which I own a few on that side of things. Oh, yeah. I have a 1994 Mercedes SL320, where the roof sometimes works, which I've had for 7 years... Purchased for £3,850. Wow. That's good. Bargain. That's really good. And a 2002 Saab 9.3 2-litre T SE convertible, which I bought for my wife for £650. Oh. These sit alongside our dailies. We have a baby en route. En route. I've never heard that used. Anyway, baby en route, on the way. It makes sense. The very first world problem I have is that R129s, which is the SL, do not like to be sat dormant. And with it having woeful rear seats, I can't see it being much use without it looking like child abuse. The Saab, on the other hand, even though it's a 2002, has Isofix, so it's the ideal summer snotter. Yep. My question is, do I keep the two, or do I swap both of these for circa £5,000 to £6,000 and get a proper four-seater, either a B6 Audi S4 V8 Cabrio or a BMW E46 330 Ci Cabrio? Oh, both good cabs. Yes, they are, aren't they? Yeah, they are. They're both good-looking and, like say, quite capacious. What I would say, Luke, is first of all that, yes, I'm afraid the Merc should go. if you're not going to get use out of it, it's just going to stress you out that you're not using it. And you'll go, I really should take the Mercedes for a run this weekend just to make sure it's still okay. But you've got a baby, you've got other commitments, you're going to forget. And then it's going to be the next weekend, and the next weekend, the next weekend, and then the battery's going to be flat. And then it's just going to stress you out and annoy you, and you're going to regret the fact that you've got this nice car that you're not using. So I think unless you're massively emotionally attached to it, get it gone.
I do agree. However, as I was just nodding, I looked out my window and there's a crow on top of my neighbour's house with a full baguette in its mouth. But,
is it a sign? And if so, of what?
It's a sign.
Buy a French car.
No, I think you're right. I think when you have a family, you're going to have probably less recreational time anyway. You're very lucky to have a cabrio each, his and hers cabs. But I think the Merc's probably gone up slightly in value despite being huge miles. So I think you could chop that in and say, I've had a good time with that, time to get rid. And either keep the Saab and probably bring it up to standard a bit more if it needs a little bit of money, fettling it to make it prettier and more reliable. Or like you say, it's very tempting to check out the prices of a burbling Audi. Those Audi cabrios are nice cars.
Do you know what? E46 330 Ci cab, nice car back in its day. It'd be all right now, but that Audi with the V8, it'll sound nice, it'll feel... those Audis of that generation always felt very sturdy.
They did. Good cruisers.
Although I'm not sure they're sort of quite as reliable and tough mechanically as they feel from anecdotal evidence, but they are lovely. I'd go for the Audi, strangely, even though it's not as nice ultimately to drive as the BMW.
I know what you mean.
It's a nicer thing to have.
And I think if you've got one cabrio between the two of you, ultimately you'll be able to chop and change who's going to take the cab today, who's going to, are we going to go out? And you'll, like you said, you'll probably use it more and cherish it more. And that's coming from Captain, I'll just buy another car, Smith. But I do think that's the rational response.
Well, because Luke does say that these cars, the Merc and the Saab, sit alongside their dailies. So these are not necessarily the daily cars. These are sort of fun cars. He adds that he owns a 205 GTI for which he paid £1,100 and a 259,000 mile Alpha 159 Ti with the 1.9 diesel in it. So I don't know how many cars are there dailies as well. I mean,
you couple,
in which case,
you two have got nice
choice.
Got a good cluster, a good small holding of vehicles.
Yes, yeah. But I would quite honestly, I think I would get the Merc and the Saab gone and get that Audi for a bit of shizzle and giggles.
Yeah, I would. But let us know what you decide, please.
Yes, yes, do.
As is always the case on Otosot, we welcome the letters.
Yes, hello@smithandsniff.com is the address if you want to send us anything.
I've got a little letter here that's for me from a guy called Chris. Chris says, as Jonny often rattles on about his love of VW Beetles, which I share as I've learnt to drive in a canary yellow 71 Beetle cabriolet, and my first real car was a 1975 Dasher Touring, in brackets US spec. Was that the Polo in ROW? I don't know what ROW means.
Rest of the world.
Oh, rest of the world, of course.
The
Dasher.
It wasn't. The Dasher was the Passat, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was bigger than a Polo. I think it was.
Yeah, it was. But it's definitely bigger.
Wasn't
than
a Santana,
no,
was it?
Well, Santana was the Passat saloon of some generations, but I think the Dasher was the first generation Passat. In the US, and maybe Canada. I assume Canada.
Anyway, he said, Jonny has never addressed the characteristic sound of a Beetle/Samba bus at wide open throttle going full chat. I think you, SSGs, sweet guys, have danced around this topic. But the half-whistle, half-chirp VW noise is actually known as a fweep. FWEEP, fweep.
Did you know this?
No, I didn't know this. I've never heard this in my life. Could it?
No, me neither.
Chris says, could it be a California thing? The fweep of a Beetle is certainly unmistakable. Just like an elderly air called 911 has a definite signature song. A bit of an onomatopoeia, I guess. Does a 356 have a fweep? Does a 912 have a fweep? I think it does. I'm not sure, having never been lucky enough to drive such vehicles on that side of things. Irregardless, All car perverts know that special Beatles sound. But what is it that makes the fweep? Is it the design of the exhaust system, the design of the engine? Dunno. But I love the sound as it was part of my earliest driving memories. CMTMB, much love. Take care of your good selves and keep up this silly toss. Chris.
That's a good question. Because I think that I've driven a 356.
Yeah, and it does fweep. It does fweep.
It does, but it's not quite the same. And
no,
I like those recent Porsche Boxsters and Caymans with the flat 4 in.
Yeah.
At certain revs, under certain conditions, there's a tiny hint of Beatliness. But very tiny, and almost like I think you kind of maybe slightly imagining it because you're looking for it or trying to hear it. But nothing sounds exactly like a VW Beetle / Type 2 or what have you. And why is that?
Well, I think the Beetle and bus, but mostly if you notice, the Beetle whistles and the bus actually doesn't whistle. And that's because the Beetle has twin tailpipes, and inside the original pea shooters, as they call them, it has the baffles right at the end. So most exhaust systems don't have a baffle right at the very, very end of the exhaust. Whereas, of course, a Beetle has no option because it's got a very small amount of space.
Yeah, yeah.
And the 911 and I think the 356 have got more baffling in the main compartment, the main box that goes across the back of the car before it comes out. Okay. So the Beetle tends to kind of try and silence the noise right at the very end of its journey.
Yeah. Hence
that real shrill kind of, it almost sounds like sort of caged birds on the overrun, which I like. I think it is quite jolly. I put some baffle-less tips on my car when I was 18, and my brother and my dad shook their heads and went, nah, it doesn't sound as good. But I've since put them back thanks to Cartune. I will shout out to Cartune, who old school VW tuner who have rekindled their old designs. But so I think certain engines do fweep. They very, very much do fweep, and I guess it's more engine being at the rear with no space to package said exhaust. So I'm trying to think of any other rear-engine cars that make an unusual sound.
The sort of metallic element of a Beetles engine / exhaust note always reminds me of a tambourine.
Yes.
It feels like there might be a tambourine in there somewhere. Literally, there's there's your problem, mate. You've got a tambourine stuck to your engine.
Oh, it's bloody tambourine in a way. Which reminds me, the famous song, Hey Mr. Tambourine Song, play a song for me. I've probably said this before. It's the most nonsensical, I think, song. Like, yeah,
play a song on the tambourine.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll do Living on a Prayer on the tambourine. Here we go.
Here we go. Hey, who likes Smoke on the Water? Ching, 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 ching.
Oh, yeah, God, do you know what? That tambourine rendition of Coldplay's Yellow, God, it really had me in tears. Loved it.
Yeah.
No one would ever say that.
Now, who likes Beethoven's Fifth? Here we go. Ching, 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 ching. Yeah, let's do it. Hey, Mr. Guitar Man. Hey, Mr. Piano Man. Hey, Mr. Orchestra Man. Could you do that, Bob? No. Good. All right. Well, we've solved that and everything else, so we might as well end. But thank you for all your questions, and do keep them coming. hello@smithandsniff.com. We'll be back on Monday with a regular show, and next Friday with another Otosot. Until then, goodbye.
Bye, guys. Or as we say in the West Country,
cheers, mate. Thanks, mate. Bye.